Are we ready to bake? Today we are going to do lemon bars. And there's 2 steps to lemon bars. You have to do a crust first and bake that off, and then we'll finish it off with our filling in the middle. So there's only a few ingredients for our crust here. We've got butter, salt, sugar, and flour. So what I like to do is add my dry ingredients first and blend them together. So we've got our flour and our sugar and our salt. It's 1½ teaspoons of salt. Put that in there. Then I like to take my rubber spatula and just stir all this stuff together to make sure that all of these dry ingredients get mixed in well. Okay. This crust is going to be kind of a fluffy crust. It's not going to be real packed until you put it in the pan. Okay, our last ingredient is our butter. And I've cubed our butter. We want it to be cold butter, and just cubes. So you just cut it up into cubes like this, and we're going to add all of these into our flour, sugar, salt mixture. Then I like to stir this around too to just get all of these butter squares coated in the flour mixture. Now we're going to put it on our mixer. Started out slow at first. We started out slow to begin with. You'll see how the butter chunks are still like squares, and that's okay because as we blend this, then it'll kind of chop those up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and turn this off, and you'll notice that it still looks very dry, and we still have butter chunks in there, but the butters are not cubes anymore. It's just kind of blended in with the flour mixture a little bit better. You'll see it still looks like kind of a dry mixture, and that's just how we want it. We're going to go ahead and pour this into a prepared cookie pan. This is a 1/4 sheet cooking pan. We're going to dump this whole thing inside here. Scrape out the bottom and pour all that in. It looks like it's a lot, but it'll mush down. We just want to make sure before we smash it down tight that we want to make sure this is a nice level crust. Okay, once we've got that going, then we're going to press this down nice and tight. Okay, this is what it looks like, and we're going to go ahead and put it in the oven, and we're going to bake it for 12 minutes. Our crust is baking, so while it's baking, we're going to go ahead and start on our filling. And our filling is done in a mixing bowl like this. Our first ingredients, so we're going to add our dry ingredients first. We have our sugar and our flour. And I like to mix these together first that makes it so that our lemon filling does not get clumps of flour in it. If we're mixing it around in the sugar, then all of those clumps get mixed in with the sugar and it's nice and smooth when it gets finished. Okay, so that looks good. So it looks like just one ingredient instead of two. All right, we are gonna add our lemon juice. One cup. We're gonna mix that in. We mix one ingredient in at a time so that it doesn't get too sloshy and too hard to mix all at once. This way we can see that all of the ingredients are mixed evenly in. And there's no dry parts of the flour and sugar because we've got it all mixed in. We want to make sure that we're scraping the bottom and the sides so that nothing is staying dry. Okay, our next step is our eggs, and that's 1 cup as well. And I have liquid eggs. If you're using regular eggs that you crack, it's 4 large eggs is equal to 1 cup. You'll see it's getting more liquidy. And you can tell when the eggs are all mixed in. Right now it kind of looks like there's stripes in there, and that's how you can tell that there's eggs versus sugar lemon mixture. You want it to look all the same. All right, see that? There's no more swirly lines in it, so it's all nice and mixed. Now we're gonna do lemon extract. This is lemon flavoring, and it's a 1/2 teaspoon. All right, you want to mix that in really good. All right, and our last ingredient is 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And you want to wait until the very, very end, just before your crust beeps. All right, so we've got 1 teaspoon and 2 teaspoons. Okay, and the baking powder is going to want to stay clumpy. So that's why you want to give yourself plenty of time to get those clumps kind of knocked down. So probably 2-3 minutes before your crust is finished is when you want to start getting this put in. And as you're whisking it, then all of the clumps from the baking powder will get knocked down. We have our mixture finished, and we have our crust just out of the oven. So now we're gonna carefully start pouring this in our crust. If you pour it in too quick at the beginning, it might pull up some of the crust. So start it out slow. It's gonna get nice and full. And I always put a pan underneath my smaller pan just so that when I'm carrying it to the oven, that it doesn't spill over and make a mess. I'd rather have the mess on the pan than in my oven or on my floor. This is what it looks like right out of the oven. Nice and toasty brown on top. And when it cools completely, just before I'm ready to cut it, I will sprinkle on some powdered sugar. All right, and this is the finished product with the powdered sugar on top.